I am so excited to have another conversation with Charlene. I'm Dr. Phyllis Hubbard, and this is Heal, Nourish, and Rise. We're having transformative conversations on the journey to healing from cancer.
And in the midst of this, like for my reconstructive surgery, my doctors didn't listen to me, and I ended up almost dying because a nurse decided I didn't know my own body, because I told her I had an infection, and she asked me, well, why do you think you have an infection? I said, because at night I'm getting chills and fever. And she said, that's just your body metabolizing. I said, no, it's not, because I have pre-diabetes and I know when my body's metabolizing. Plus, I've taken pain medicines, and I learned about metabolism from taking them. Because if you're not careful in putting enough food in your body when you're taking narcotics for pain management, you can die. That's what I learned. Because the medicine is feeding off your body. That's what I learned personally. So, so with all of this, they didn't listen to me, and I had ended up with 2 bacteria infections. This is where nature and medicine met. Mm-hmm. See, this is the things they don't tell you. In order for my body to heal, in order for me to live, they gave me, I think it was like 5 hanging different types of antibiotics. I had to take 1 oral antibiotic and every vitamin there was.
And a lot of protein. Any conversation about probiotics at all?
Yeah, they did talk about they gave me probiotics. They did, because it was like, and the weird thing is the chemotherapy made my hair darker, but going through that process with all that hard stuff and all this, my hair texture changed and it's more coarse now. Mm-hmm. So what you put in your body changes all your whole environment, your hair, your skin, your smell, everything. Yeah. It can throw off your pH balance, everything. So I learned a lot through this process that most people don't learn in medical school.
Yeah.
And I'll say that.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
It really was textbook. It was textbook, but because I'm a Black woman, it's not textbook. Well, I'll just say this.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll say this. I have been telling my doctors back in Albuquerque, after I had the episode with feeling like I was finna OD, when they told me to take I was taking 3 hydrocodones a day, 3 Neurotins a day, and 3 Mortrins a day together. So one day, because this is when I was, trying to learning how to eat is a juggling act. So I was doing my vegan situation. And so what I didn't know was I wasn't feeding my body enough for all the medicines I was taking. And that's what I figured out. Now, I could be wrong, but that's what my body told me, because I started to feel nauseous and stuff. And then my body said, go eat something. So I went and ate something, and then it went away. I said, this stuff is feeding off my body. But when I started telling my doctors, look, I want to come off of this, they're just looking at me like I was crazy. So I decided to wean my own self off, because I knew how. From when I was in my 20s, I weaned myself off of some prednisone from asthma. So because the doctors will just leave you on it. They just making money, Now, some of them care, but some of them, there's just money game. So anyway, I started weaning myself off. And so I went from the 3 to the 2 a day. And then I went from the 2 to the 1, and then I went half. So I had to wean myself off. It took me 2 years. So after I got off the hydrocodone, and the Neurontin was the first thing that went, because it was just it was horrible. But anyway, and then I went to tramadol. And so I took that for probably about a year, and I weaned myself off of that. Now, all the time I'm telling these doctors what I'm doing, and it's looking at me like it. And then all of a sudden,
wait a minute. At that point where you said, I'm weaning myself off of these drugs, they didn't say, hey, this is a safe way to do it. Let me help you in the process. Good Lord, they all should lose their, but this is the reality. This is the reality.
They did not.
This real talk that we're doing here.
Yes. And what I did in the process of the wean, I did what you taught me. I took some ginger, some turmeric, some lemon, honey water, and I drank it throughout the day. And that's what helped manage my pain. And that's what helped me have energy.
Yeah.
And so that helped kind of combat the medicines. And then I also made me some cilantro and garlic soup, because
Mhm.
I remember you telling me to do something with that so that I could get the poisons out of my body. So I did that, and it really did work.
I'm
And
so
so here I
happy that
was.
you remembered stuff because sometimes I would talk and I'm like, ain't nobody listening to me. But cilantro and garlic together helps to pull heavy metal toxins out of the body. Turmeric and ginger are also really good for helping to cleanse the body. Bentonite clay. I actually had a client who had breast cancer, and she had a big, I was doing the massage, she had a big brown patch on her back. And I said, she's Latina. And I said, have you always had this brown patch? And she said, no. And I realized that it came after her cancer treatment. It just was a collection
Mhm.
of the residual
The poison.
drug poisons, right? And I told her this, and she didn't believe me. Of course, she looked at me the way you looked at me, like, okay, this woman's a little weird. And I said, we're going to put some clay, bentonite clay on there, and we're going to use again that gua sha tool, and
Yeah.
break up that stuff. And then when it started to break apart, that's when she freaked out. She was like, I can't believe it. I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
you can't leave that toxic residue there. We have to move it out. And so we worked and worked and worked on it through massage and through gua sha and salt baths and clay and turmeric and, all that stuff. And in about 3 to 4 months, the entire thing just disappeared. And I said, this is
Wow.
one of the things you have to clean your body after taking those poisons, right? It takes at least
Mhm.
6 months. I say 6 months to a year of just
Yeah.
cleansing the body to get all that junk out so that you can, just reestablish the balance in the body. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and I want to add to that when you talk about the Quasha tool. So one of the things that we did together when I was in Albuquerque, the last time I think I saw you, where
Mhm.
you worked on the my reconstructed breast,
Yes.
and I had no idea how much energy was trapped in that. Just always tired and pain. But she went deep into tissue, and when she finished, I felt like I was in heaven.
Okay. So tell me, for people that don't know what we're talking about, um, what was the gua sha experience like for you? And then I'll show people what a gua sha is and what it does. Yeah, just
Okay.
explain to people, like, just break it down for folks. I come to you and I'm all excited and I'm like, hey, take your shirt off. I can't wait to see you naked so that I can work your scar tissue. And you're like, what? Are you crazy, woman? So because I'm, in Ayurveda, scar tissue is a very big deal. Very big deal. And
Yeah.
particularly in Ayurvedic massage, if there is a scar tissue, it has to be worked until till all the hardness of the tissue is gone. And so that until that tissue almost feels like your regular skin. And if not, it can pull right over time in the direction of the scar. So having scar tissue in the body, me being trained as an Ayurvedic practitioner, I'm like, you can't have scar. We've got to work that scar tissue. We've got to loosen it up, right? And so,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that experience from your perspective.
Yeah. But that's deep that you said that it'll pull towards the scar because that's the source of the pain.
Yes.
So that's interesting that you say that, because that's what happens, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Everything
exactly
magnates
what it is.
towards the pain.
It's so gradual. It's like nano movements. It's like the tissue's really
Hmm.
hard, and you think about the pull of gravity. It's just over time it pulls. So when I would work with women who had C-section scars, right? Because that's a whole nother area to be working down there. And I'm like, you're having these digestive issues, and some of it is connected to the scar tissue, right? We've known this for thousands of years in the holistic world, right? You cannot have scar tissue that has been unworked. You have to work that tissue. And so that's why when you were talking about the stuff that was going on with you, I was like, I wonder if I could get this woman to let me, get this gua sha up in there.
And you know, it was I just knew that I could trust you. I felt it inside of me. And so that's why I let it, because I was like, what is that? I was like, oh my gosh, she finna use another witchcraft tool on me.
So let me show you what the tool looks like. There are many different types of tools. This is a tool that's been used in Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine for many yeah, thousands and thousands of years. And it used to be called spooning because they would use like a ceramic spoon. So this is an example of a gua sha. This is a gua sha that's made out of Carillion, right? The one that I used on Charlene was made out of jade, and I specifically
Jade.
use that because jade is really good for removing things that no longer serve you anymore. And so what you do with the gua sha is you take, if I can show it this way, you take the edge, many different ways that you can use, and you literally just rub up and down, you know, from very gentle to very light until the area gets a little bit red, right? And that means that the blood is coming to the surface of the skin, and then you can move to the next area. And the gua sha has many different, you know, places where you can work. So you can work your hands, you work anywhere. So basically, what I was doing was I was working on her scar tissue in her chest. And when I went in there, the tissue was so hard. I knew that it wasn't just that scar that was, you know, in there. It was her trauma, her pain, you know, the
Yeah.
depression. It was, I could feel it in there. So I just went in there and I started. There's a very kind of specific way that you get in and you work it. Sometimes you have to do it over clothes or over a towel, and then you eventually can go like direct on the skin. So I went in and I worked all the way around her breast, right? And it was a little bit, I'm sure it was a little bit uncomfortable as I was, you know, working through.
It was, but it wasn't painful. It was just it just stuff was breaking up. That's all
Yeah,
I could say. You
yeah.
could feel things breaking up and loosening up. And it was like it
Mhm.
felt good and uncomfortable at the same time, just like the truth, you know.
Yeah,
Um
yeah. Come on, talk, speak it. That's the truth, you know. But the truth does what? It sets you free,
it
right?
sets you
So
free.
what I was
It
trying to
sets you
do
free.
is get that oxygenated blood to move into that area to get you to accept all of who you are now, right? This is
Right.
your body now, and you need to love it,
Right.
right? And so this is a way of nourishing. So we've talked about a few ways you've nourished yourself. One, you were like, I don't care what the medical community says. I'm going to go ahead and take care of myself. I'm going to wean myself off these drugs because they don't feel right. They weren't doing anything to help
Right.
me get off, but I'm going to do it for myself, right? And
Right.
then, did you begin to pipe down in terms of, and you let me do the gua sha on your body, which was,
Yes.
but did you begin then to start making more time for yourself? Like, how did you go from I'm going to work in all these different organizations to I'm going to start actually dealing with myself? Talk to me about how that nourishment.
Okay. So I moved again. I moved to Tennessee. That's where I'm at now, close to Nashville. And when I got here, I knew I had to shut the organization down, which basically I was kind of using it mostly for research and development at that point so that I can come out strong because I know my abilities, but going through that cancer treatment, I lost myself. I mean, it was like it just took away my whole life. So when I got here, I was like, okay, so what are you gonna do now? Now what are you gonna do? So I felt lost. And so I realized I needed to take time for myself to heal at that point.
Right.
Mind you, look, this is like I'm 12 years out.
Yep.
I
Hey.
moved here in 2000. I moved here in 2015.
Yeah.
So it took from 2008, well, really all my life, but 2008 to 2015 for me to stop and shut down.
Right. Right.
So I shut down, shut the business down, and I shut myself down. And at this point, I had to start pushing some people away because I was changing and they weren't. And so it kind of organically happened. And so you just let it happen. You don't try to cling and hold on. Because a lot of people don't know that's what they call addiction. Okay. Like people think, oh, addiction.
Codependency as well. Yeah.
Right. It's just a tool. what you use to separate yourself from yourself, that's really what it is. It's just tools because you haven't accepted yourself. See, that's where I'm at now. But let's go back to how I got here. So I got here and I was on Section 8. I was, Section 8 is a trap. Even though it's a blessing, it's a trap because what it does is it causes more stress. Because now you're dealing with you're dealing with the housing and the Section 8 people. And it's just a lot of confusion. So I was like, this is too much for me. So, and then being that I did have a life and work before I got cancer, I still had bills. So life still was moving on for me. But because I was young when I got cancer, I hadn't built up enough reservoir in my, resource bank for the government Social Security system. So therefore, get a really little check, So they said, well, this is what you're worth based on your work history. So I said, well, okay, I have to take it. And so with that, and then now the world is changing. Like in the midst of me going through this, housing is changing. It's like now you got apartment buildings that where once upon a time, if you just had money, if you could afford $500, look, I could pay $500, look at my check. They said, okay, fine. You didn't have to have 3 times that amount to stay in a safe place. So now I ended up having to move back in with my ex and, but I did get to shut down. Yeah. But that caused me to look inside of myself. Being in that situation, living with someone, it took my independence away. I mean, I was independent still, even though I had to depend on a broken system. I still was my independent, making my own decisions. And now I ignorantly put my decision making in someone else's hands. So now I had to look inside of myself. And that's where the healing really began.